Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to a brand new video. I'm Jay Eskar, and today, as you can see from the title, I'm going to show you how to make your songs sound way bigger, sound huge. And in order to do that, we're going to be making use of a very powerful tool called stereo imaging. Before we go into the computer though, stereo image is the perceived spatial locations of sound sources between an audio signal. And just like in the 3D world, so the world we live in, there are three dimensions: height, width, and depth. So you got to start seeing your music that way. So I imagine my music as if it's in a box, because that's really what it is. And in order to make something as interesting as possible, you got to play around with all the spaces available. In this case, I'm going to focus on the width of that box, or the width of the image, by using stereo imaging. I can focus on height and depth on other videos, but that's basically leveling and reverb and delay, which I've talked about before. But again, I can get further into these details in future videos. All right, so once you visualize your music as a soundstage, there are actually some implications of stereo widening. Main implications are when you make something super wide and then you listen to it on mono, it might go really low in volume and in some cases even disappear if you overdo it. So you gotta really be careful and always be checking your mixes on mono so you can make sure that you have mono compatibility, which is essential because you might be wondering, who listens to stuff in mono nowadays? Well, your phone is mono and every single live event uses big PA systems that are actually mono. So whenever your music gets played in concerts or in clubs, it's being played on mono. So you gotta really make sure that your music is compatible to be played in mono. So now that we got that cleared, we're good to move forward with the tutorial. So now that we are in the PC, I opened one of my favorite songs ever, actually a remix. The first step on making your songs sound bigger is paying attention to contrast. The first and most important step once you're in the computer is understanding that you need to have contrast. You just can't make everything wide because then nothing is going to sound wide, right? So you have to have a point of reference. The easiest way to know what you should use as a reference is actually anything that is below 100 hertz, which normally are your sub and a part of your kick. So the way I started off with my stereo imaging in this case was by making my sub my point of reference. So in order to make this sub mono, all you have to do is merge it. Merge the stereo separation. And in FL Studio, luckily enough, you got a knob here, which can help you do that really quickly. So all you have to do is put it all the way to the right, so it's purple, right? You can actually see the name of that knob around here on the left, and it's a stereo separation knob. Once you put it all the way to the right, you actually make that signal completely mono. So now we listen to the bass line. It sounds like this. Now we have a point of reference. Besides making my sub my point of reference, I like adding a kick as well. My kick usually is mono, but not completely. So this is why I don't use this stereo separation tool for the kick. So, because I know that I want to keep some stereo image on some of the higher frequencies. So what you do, or what I usually like doing, is adding some sort of mid-side EQ or just some sort of multi-band stereo imaging tool. Normally I would use Pro Q. So we could use Pro Q3. And what I like doing is just finding the stereo preset called cut low side, because it just makes it faster. And what this does is make sure that every single frequency below 100 hertz stays mono. Once you do that, now you have 2 points of reference in order for you to make everything as wide as possible. So let's play this now. So far, so good. We got our point of reference. Now we can add contrast. Making your claps or making something in your drums wider is usually a great trick to start adding that little contrast, which at the end will make your song sound huge. After that, I would move on to the main sounds of the drop. In this case, I have a vocal and I have chords, and that's pretty much it. Now, what I would like to make as wide as possible is the vocal. Actually, it isn't really a vocal, it's actually a vocal lead. And it sounds like this. And if I remove the stereo imaging that I did, it would sound like this. So with without. In this case, I'm actually using a tool called Magic Stereo, which you don't really need to make your sounds sound bigger. You can actually use let's actually make this bigger using a plugin by FL Studio called Stereo Shaper, which is my favorite. All you have to do is delay your sound a little bit to either right or left. This is how it normally would sound, and let's make it a little bit wider as we play it. This is normal. That is wider, and as soon as you do that, it just sounds wider. I also like adding some dephasing to the left side, so it actually makes it easier for me to have more mono compatibility. Stereo imaging isn't as complicated as it seems. It's just about adding contrast. After I worked around with the stereo imaging of my main lead, my drums, what I like doing is actually playing those things together in mono just to see the compatibility. Like I've said, you need to check your mono compatibility because it might sound shit in mono and you don't want that. All right. Now go ahead and go listen to the sounds together without any mono, without making it mono, and then make it mono to see the difference. To me, this is good. Obviously, the main lead goes down in volume, but that's just, like I've said, implications of working around with stereo imaging. After this, we move around with your other main sounds. So I actually have some chords that sound like this. It's actually a layer of 2 chords, of 2 sounds. I have one of them here that sounds like this. And then I have another one that sounds like this. Again, even within here, you gotta make sure that when you add stereo imaging or stereo width, you don't add the same amount to each sound, because you gotta put each sound on their own space, on their individual space, so it sounds bigger, so it sounds better, so there's contrast. All right, that's the key to this video. I could have actually just made this video 1 minute long, just telling you, oh, just add contrast, but you wouldn't really get the point of it, right? So this is exactly why I'm showing you. For the first sound that sounds like this, I actually have a stereo shaper, which is just delaying the sound to the right 6 milliseconds. I know it says Magic Stereo, but it's because that's the first plugin that I opened. Then I switched it to this one, so the name just stayed there for some reason. But yeah, this is really wide. It's actually really wide. But for this effect, it works. So if we remove it, it sounds like this. And if we add it, it's just a subtle change. So for the second sound, I added, again, another stereo shaper. Let's listen to it without it. Now with it, it's a subtle change again, but it really does add something up. The difference here is that I'm not making this sound as wide. This is only 4.9 milliseconds delay to the right compared to the other one, which is 6. So over here, we're creating contrast, giving every single sound their own space. In this case, I actually added a lot of dephasing. I think this is actually a preset that you got on Stereo Shaper, which I think it's called Stereoize 3 or something. Yes, Stereoize 3. Just so you know, you actually have 3 presets here, which you can use to make your sounds a little bit more stereo. And it works like a charm. Now we can play everything together to see how it sounds. So far, this sounds great. Now let's check the mono compatibility. In order to do that, you can do many things. Just make sure to make this mono, or use a plugin that has a mono option here. In this case, I'm just going to do that. You can use, if you're using Ableton, you can use utility. I think utility has an option there which can make everything mono. So let's listen to this stereo and then listen to it at mono. Now let's play at mono. As we can see, the chords and the lead really go down in volume, but this wasn't a problem. I feel like you can still feel the song as it should. So that's pretty much what you have to do when using stereo imaging. There's actually people that like optimizing their stereo image even more by adding a stereo imager or a mid-side EQ on their master. which I did in this case. I actually have a FabFilter Pro Q where I'm making everything below 125 hertz mono. In this case, I don't care if it's a kick or a sub drop or whatever it is. I just want to make sure that every single frequency below 125 hertz is mono. So for this case, I'm using Pro Q2, but you could use Ozone 8 or something like that. And for the high frequencies, I have another Pro Q, which is making everything a little bit wider beyond 5,000 hertz. And that's pretty much it. This is what I usually do to make my songs sound wider. And trust me, if you pay attention to this and you actually try to apply the contrast idea of to your music, you will notice changes and you will notice improvements, which is the most important part about it. So yeah, that's it for the video. Make sure to hit that like button. It will really help me out, as the algorithm works that way for some reason. If you're not subscribed, you should. 70% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed, which it's mind-blowing. But yeah, if you also want to connect with me on other social medias, all my other social medias are Jay Eskar. Instagram is Jay Eskar, Facebook is Jay Eskar, Twitter is Jay Eskar. Also, if you want to join a really cool Discord channel, I actually have my own, where people talk, have fun, give feedback to each other, collaborate, talk, play video games. You know, if you're feeling the quarantine kind of hitting, make sure to join us. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video as much as I did. I'll see you on the next video. Feel free to leave more suggestions in the comments. Bye bye.